Now to ITV8, the Buffalo shooting has the nation spotlighting the idea of the great replacement theory. It's a theory investigators believe played a role in the motive behind the Buffalo shooting. ITV8's Jasmine Miner is here now to break it down for us and the challenges law enforcement, Jasmine, have in stopping it from turning into violence.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the great replacement theory is essentially a conspiracy theory that non-white people are being brought into the United States to replace white people for political gain. Well, it's a theory I'm finding that's been around since the 1900s, but in terms of limiting it to just free speech and not it turning into those violent actions like the Buffalo shooting, that hasn't gotten any easier for investigators. He says it's those who are isolated that makes it harder for law enforcement to track down.
And these lone operators, lone wolves as we used to call them, they're the most problematic.
Doug Coons, former FBI agent and now CEO of Veracity IIR, a private investigator company, says a lone wolf compared to a group with a history of violence typically won't get reported to law enforcement.
You can't just say, okay, this guy posted something disturbing on social media, put a wiretap on his phone. It just doesn't happen that way. There's a whole lot of steps to legally get to that level.
Which puts investigators in the position of the fine line between free speech and someone who could carry out an attack. But he agrees shootings resulting in hate crimes and the idea of the great replacement theory is growing.
When you peel back the layers on all of that chronology, all of that history, what you see at the very core of it is fears over a dark immigrant replacing white people.
Lasana Kisembi, an African studies professor at Indiana University, says the conspiracy theory first came to light back in the 1900s. Since then, he says it's just evolved with a lack of general education around it.
We're dealing with people who would rather believe than think. Essentially, you're talking about how do you alter someone's psychology? How do you get them to understand the distinction between perception and reality?
According to the National Immigration Forum, someone who believes in the great replacement theory will often use rhetoric like migrant invasion, voter replacement, and anti-Semitism language. But the professor says changing it is a different kind of challenge.
To my students over 15 years ago, that we are going to have to brace ourselves and prepare for 80 to 90 years of intense racial strife.
Even with the best of protection.
This particular store had a security guard, armed security guard, but what are you going to do against a guy wearing body armor that's got a high-powered rifle?
Well, the National Immigration Forum has a list of steps that people like you and me can take to combat the great replacement theory. They include learning more about the history, talking about it with loved ones, and the most important, I would say, is asking questions if you notice someone aligning with these theories. I'm Jasmine Miner with For Wish TV, WishTV.com, and follow us on Facebook.